Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Martin Lopez Vito. I'm a regional sales director for Southeast Asia for OpenLegacy, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar this morning. Our webinar is entitled The Future of FSI, so Open Banking, Mobile Innovation, and Core System Integration. We'll follow this up with a fireside chat for around 20 minutes, and then we'll open as well to our participants for questions and answers. So as of the moment, you'll see part of the buttons that are on your screen are for Q&A. This allows you also to post questions, which we can either answer later during the question and answer portion, or we can also answer those questions and send that out as well as a copy of today's presentation to you for your consumption at a later date. So, without further ado, let me just get started talking about what we're going to be doing today and what you can expect in terms of the agenda. First, let me introduce OpenLegacy. So, many of you are asking, those that have had conversations with us and those of you that are new to these conversations, who is OpenLegacy and what do you do? Well, OpenLegacy, basically, we are a company and a solution that was designed to address one of the greatest pain points that we face as organizations, and those challenges as we seek to thrive and succeed in these times of increased focus on agility, flexibility, and digitalized delivery of services and experiences. Now, the question, I guess, that is prevalent in our minds is, how do we bring the benefits of the stability and performance of our core legacy systems and rapidly expose these as services or consumable services that enable systems of engagement to deliver and drive digital experiences for our customers inside and outside the organization. And it's this ability to drive core integration, or what we term as last mile integration, using open technology that allows OpenLegacy to operate as part of your API and integration platform and stack to deliver ubiquitous, reusable core system integration assets for your stakeholders. Now, in the 4 years since establishing itself as a global business, and that's a mere 3 years after its founding, OpenLegacy has become a trusted partner to some of the largest names across industry verticals, specifically as well to financial services institutions globally, including institutions that lead the industry in the Asia Pacific region. We have recognition, as you can see on the slide, from institutions such as Gartner, Deloitte, and CIO, amongst others. And in the region, we have our headquarters in Hong Kong with presences in Singapore and Japan, and we're bi-headquartered in the United States and Tel Aviv in Israel. So enough about OpenLegacy. So today we're going to be hearing from 3 very prestigious gentlemen and who are authorities in their own right in the spaces of innovation and core, right? So I'll introduce them one by one. First, we have Bob Hoey, who is the former general manager of IBM System Sales, where he drove that team to consistent revenue growth and accounted for double-digit shares in IBM's revenue. Aside from that, he also served on IBM's chairman's performance team as one of the executives that led the US financial services market and helped to drive IBM's internal transformation agenda. We also have Barry Chan, who joins us again with over 20 years of experience in the business strategy transformation and consulting sector, specifically delivering technology that leads transformational projects in the financial services sector, based out of Hong Kong. And finally, we are also joined by Joseph Wong, who serves as the general manager of Asia Pacific and Japan for OpenLegacy, and has thrice orchestrated hyper-growth trajectory of companies in Asia, right? In this presentation or in this webinar, we're going to cover 3 main things. First, we'll have a keynote delivered by Barry, talking about forgetting the new normal, right? And the changes that we face while we're making this transition. After that, we'll have a fireside chat for around 20 minutes discussing some of the current challenges and where we see the market going in terms of the financial services sector. And finally, we have an open discussion. Again, if you would like to contribute to your questions or you do have things that you would like to ask, please feel free to hit the Q&A button and enter your questions to our team. I'm going to pause for a bit here. You're going to see a pop-up on your screen for a quick poll, right? That does ask about your opinions, your organization's strategy around legacy and legacy modernization, right? We'll keep this on screen for around 20 seconds. So please feel free to select an answer from that, and we'll get back to the results later on in the webinar. Terrific, thank you. So we're seeing that come in. We'll wait for another 5 seconds and then we'll proceed. Okay, I think that's cool. We can close that, close the poll. And so again, moving forward, there we go. So I'd like to introduce again Barry Chan, who will now take us through our keynote presentation. Barry, handing over to you.
No problem. Let me share my screen. You might need to close your screen first so that I can take it over. You see it okay with the big screen, I hope? Mm-hmm. All right. So first of all, thanks OpenLegacy inviting me to do the sharing today. So what I'm trying to start with is a study that we have done since mid last year and published in early 2021 about finding your essential. This is a series of 2021 CEO study, trying to understand what is the climate going, what are the major leader in the world going. And this particular study cover 3,000 CEO, 26 industry, and you can see it is a very broad and balanced coverage globally. And it covers banking, definitely banking industry where I come from, and of course other industry like insurance as well. So we are trying to leverage this result to give us some insight about what are the most critical capability or essential priorities at this point of time. Yeah. So there are 3 major priorities that we have identified in the study. Yeah, and we are more focusing on the left-hand side one, the perform with purposeful agility. Of course, technology important and regulation are important. So why we are focusing on this one? In this particular survey, we asked across all the respondents, different industry, different part of the world. We can see clearly that, they're more focused on enhancing operational agility and flexibility. It is far higher than the other. Well, actually, when we are starting this survey, we are thinking about secure data and cybersecurity being top of it. Yeah, but it's actually we are not surprised that agility really among the most important attribute, but it is actually 37% higher, and that creates some direction that to my team, to the consulting team, that this is something that we need to focus to help our client enhancing the capability in order to prepare for the unprecedented change in the future. And I think that we are all talking about the new normal, but indeed the new normal keep changing. And that's why we really need to have the organization acquire that agility as a core competency. So if you zoom in into the what that means, so here, there are a few keywords I want to point out. For the agility with a remote and distributed workforce, the way of working, organization mode, organization culture, need to be changed. And they all need to be supported by technology. And also it's not just the workforce. Having the new empowered workforce working with the digital customer remotely, is another challenge. So this is a combination of organization model, organization culture, and also technology in order to overcome the challenge that we are facing right now. So I find a very good quote in this particular research, which I really want to share with you. The entire experience has made us less bureaucratic, more responsive, and we better be all in. So I just point out a few keywords. So number one is all these agility transformation is not internal focus. Although the response is saying, hey, we need to have agility in the operational efficiency, etc. But this is what we are doing. What we are doing here is to create a new experience for the customer, cut the bureaucratic. We need to make take advantage of the moment of truth and make decision on the spot, helping our customer and make it a present a far more responsive organization in front of our customer. And this is why that agility and legacy transformation become very important part of the strategy among the CEO that we have surveyed. And then we also look into various type of transformation or modernization needed in order to empower the organization to have the agility. I'm not going through all three different modes. I just highlight what they are. Well, we can do big bang, where a number of banking organizations that we are working with, they have large, major core system transformation. And they're also on the right-hand side, well, we're using digital application to replace it. But what we found is there are more banking organizations taking the progressive modernization approach. What I mean is, basically using API or using the encapsulation design, well, to make the core system presented as a more agile, supporting dynamic integration. And after we have the encapsulation layer, we would be able to modernize it or replacing it with a different piece of logic while we maintain the user interface, user experience consistently. So this is a strategy that have the advantage of presenting flexibility of the core system to the development team, to a digital development team, and have some quick win while open up or make it a low risk migration to new capability or new system replacement without impacting the customer experience. So what we found is more and more customer looking into this approach when they have a number of core system, they try to enable the digital team to work with this system much easier and also much faster. So let me share with you, based on our experience, our project experience, what are the key success factors when we are doing that kind of legacy modernization type of project to improve the agility. So there are a few things that we learned from projects. Number one is let's try to focus on the design of business service API or interface versus exposing the interface in legacy format. That's a very important one, because a lot of the organizations that we have worked with, they do have integration method already built. Yeah, but the digital team find it difficult to really understand that integration technology, and the collaboration between the two teams is actually challenging. So indeed, when we are building a new agile organization, we need to focus on exposing a business service API versus I just offer you the legacy format. Okay, there is an integration piece that you could use. So this is a very good learning point. The second one is, well, it need to have a API framework, a good governance, so that when we come to this encapsulation layer or API layer, we want to make it scalable, secure, consistent in implementation. So as an organization, we know that we have to risk all controlled and also meeting the regulatory requirement. The third one is about the culture, the collaboration of a legacy application expert and the digital application developer. We really want to build an agile team, but there are cultural different and there are fundamental skills challenge as well. So a tool, a very effective tool is very important for that. to enable the legacy application expert to easily understand, hey, if I want to build something that is more usable by the digital team, well, this is what I can do. It's not going to consume a lot of my time. It's easy to understand. And that where the tools and the methodology come to help. And indeed, IBM and also organizations like OpenLegacy have major investment in method and tools in this space, in order to help the industry move forward with the risk managed. And also, of course, the final one is very important one, building agility to adopt evolving technology. In many ways, I found it always challenging to consulting team like my team and also our kind, that the technology keep evolving. So what we want to build using this tools or technology or building an encapsulation layer, we really want to make it a more like a low-code automation in building those. So when there is changes in technology upgrade, evolve, we have the flexibility to rebuild the API, leveraging some of the newer capability, and also keep migrating and take advantage of the new cloud and digital technology. And that's also part of the reason why we keep on using tools to automation development tools to handle that. So this is a quick sharing of some of the experience we have with modernization project. So let me move to another chart which summarize what that means and how actually the architecture would be when we are building a digital transformation layer or surface for banking organizations. I come from banking organization. Sorry, this chart is very specific to banking, but it's also a similar architectural approach. It's also applicable for insurance and other industry. So I just try to talk a little bit on the top the top portion of the presentation. So when we are talking about digital transformation, this is more than the traditional mobile app, mobile banking or internet banking or conversational banking. Well, it's equally important to have the workforce empowered, the RM, the operational team. They need to be digital empowered with data, with a very dynamic process, in order to do their job more effectively, especially they are not face-to-face meeting with the customer. And also we see more and more banks are going through as the open banking. Well, partner with other organizations using OpenAPI, offering banking service embedded into the partner's application or partner services to penetrate the market more effectively. So the transformation is actually much more than the traditional mobile banking or internet banking. It is becoming partner collaboration transformation, internal workforce transformation, and also supporting digital engaged customer. And to support that, what we believe we need to build behind the scene is the experience API, the API which optimize for the customer experience, the intelligent workflow supporting it, and also the real-time customer targeting and digital promotion type of engine to support it. And this is very dynamic. How competitive you are depending on this layer supported by your existing operating system. So what I'm trying to focus now is in order to make the end-to-end agility work, we need to solve a major problem that I want to present our legacy system in a way open and easy to integrate, similar to a new system. And this is one of the major challenges we really want to help the banking organization overcome. What I would describe it is a virtual banking component. We in the traditional way, we have the ESB, we have that kind of connection and have the front end direct connecting to it. And in order to make it more like a Lego, a component that we could compose the surface more effectively, we are trying to package the core system into component, into business services, API, microservices running in a cloud-based architecture. And by doing that, it could be more effective to have the API microservices direct connect to have a actual low-code generation of these core system interface and model it using a banking as a service model. And this is how we see how we bridge the legacy skills, legacy application, with the digital innovation application, and end-to-end offer the agility, to basically support the new digital engagement channel that we are building for the future. Mm-hmm. So I think that is a quick summary what we have experienced in the market of legacy modernization, why we are doing that, and also the approach that we have applied. And we believe that this is a good reference approach for those who really want to apply the progressive modernization for the legacy applications.
Thank you very much,
All right.
Barry. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. That was Barry from IBM sharing, sharing his insights about forgetting about the new normal, and because the new normal is changing at that speed. At this point, I'd like to invite all of the panelists to turn on their video. We'll pin that onto your screen so that we can begin our fireside chat. And just before we begin that chat, I'd just like to talk about the results of the poll that we put up earlier. So basically, what we're seeing from your answers is that the bigger majority, or more than 2/3 of those of you that have replied to the poll, are actively pursuing a strategy around core legacy modernization. Majority of you would be leaning towards either that eventual migration, focusing on integration at the moment, or a hybrid approach to that legacy modernization. So very interesting things, right? And in that light, I guess we can start our chat by asking a few pertinent questions. The first of which, I guess, based on that, would be, in your experience, when it comes to addressing these core legacy systems, what do you see in terms of customers considering that strategy around that migration? I guess I'd pose the question first to Bob, so that we can get sort of like the global perspective on this.
Sure, Marty. So what I've seen with the banks and insurance companies that I've worked with around the world is that they've invested a tremendous number of man years and tens of millions of lines of code in these legacy applications, these large monolithic applications. And ripping and replacing is too risky. It's expensive, it's extremely time consuming, and history would tell you that projects around rip and replace haven't been as successful as a lot of these financial institutions would want them to be. Consequently, what we're seeing is progressive modernization, taking these large monolithic applications and breaking them down into smaller microservices and modernizing these microservices, and then over time, transforming the applications. Part of the reason that it's so expensive to do these digital transformations has to do with the fact that if you look at an average programmer, up to 60% of their time is spent just discovering the code, doing static source code analysis. And when we factor on top of that some of these financial institutions have 10 to 30% of their staff turnover every year, it just elongates the time. It increases the complexity and increases the cost of doing these monolithic to microservice type migrations. So consequently, having an API strategy where you use open APIs can dramatically improve the economics of the application modernization projects. So what I'm seeing is that with a focus on speed and agility, leveraging an API microservices strategy can economically be advantageous, and it can help mitigate the risks involved in modernizing these applications. And let's face it, all financial institutions want to provide new customer-facing front-end functionality. They want to provide increased functionality to their users to drive increased customer satisfaction and win market share. So in order to provide that new functionality in a cost-effective way, many financial institutions are leveraging APIs and microservices. That is what I'm observing in terms of migration strategies in the financial institutions that I've worked with around the world.
Thanks, Bob. So I think it's also really interesting because you also mentioned, the risk in terms of not just the technology, right, but also the risk in terms of turnover, and it's something that we as organizations really need to consider. How about you, Barry? What are you seeing, especially in your space?
Yeah. So we see most of the customers that we are working on using the traditional way of doing integration, and they have the eventually migration type of strategy, and they are facing challenge of integration agility. Yeah, the integration will need both the legacy development team, the core development team, and the digital team working together, but they not talking the same language, and that make a lot of inefficiency in when we're running projects. So what we are trying to help is introducing the method and design tools to automate the creation of API, so that lower the barrier of entry and to build secure, safe application API, which is scalable in the organization, that the legacy team will comfortable supporting as an extended part of a legacy application. And at the same time, digital team would be comfortable using them with the peace of mind that I can compose new services, new application, using them with a strong support from a legacy team. And that is not a small transformation. That requires the skills and method and tools to enable that. But once organization able to overcome that hurdle, it is very rewarding because the overall IT, the technology, the application agility improves significantly. So we see organizations are moving towards that direction, mainly driven by the challenge of the existing integration not sufficient to drive innovation fast enough. And that would definitely require the collaboration of end-to-end development team to achieve that.
Thanks, Barry. Joseph, when it comes to, again, from a regional perspective, right, especially Southeast Asia, Japan, Hong Kong, part of GCR, are you seeing, in terms of the different organizations, do you see like subtle differences, or is it does it relatively stay the same, like the challenges and these strategies like Bob and Barry mentioned?
When I think of migration, actually, Marty, I really see there are two broad categories of migration. One is the rip and replace that Bob talked about, getting rid of the mainframe, getting rid of the AS400, for instance, for the banks and insurance companies, or the hybrid approach where you keep these essential systems that actually keep the lights on, but integrate them with the new modern technologies that are in the digital layer. So I have to agree with Bob that the rip and replace is actually very risky. And even though a lot of banks and insurance companies at some point in the past had these lofty aspirations, and I still remember vividly, about 10 years ago, there's a very prominent bank in Hong Kong announcing to the world that they were going to get rid of all their mainframes. But lo and behold, they still have a lot of those right now. And in fact, I believe they're actually buying more from IBM at this point in time. Eventually, they will have to go to the hybrid model because the strategy of rip and replace is just too risky. I actually have an example in Japan where we're currently working with a multinational insurance company. They're based in the US, but they've expanded globally and also very big in Japan. They have a lot of IBM mainframe systems that they're currently using. They're not looking to replace any of that at all. They are actually looking to, however, connect these mainframes, open up these mainframes so that the business logic and the data information can interflow between the legacy layer and the digital layer, including the mobile layer. So, a lot of the users in Japan would like to use internet banking, for instance, to be able to get quotes, be able to buy insurance policies, and so forth. And so for this particular insurance company, what they needed to do is to be able to expose that data and that business logic from the legacy layer to the digital layer. And this is where we're helping them in terms of creating the APIs that are necessary to connect the old and the new and to make it happen. I do have a few more examples, but I think I'll probably save it for other questions that you may have.
Sure. Thanks, Joseph. I mean, you raised a couple of really interesting things there, and that kind of leads towards my next question, right? Where there is a reason why large institutions or institutions like that we work with have these core legacy systems. It's because in terms of performance, and they basically they're what runs our organization, right? And they've been doing so, and they're very reliable, they're very stable. But again, the challenge is how do we bring that reliability and stability forward to what we want to accomplish now in this day and age, which is, again, like you mentioned, mobile, systems of experience and engagement. So, narrowing it down, I guess, more specific to the FSI or financial services industry, the question I'd like to ask next really would be, with COVID, aside from where we want to go as institutions before this, but especially with the things that are happening in the globe that are forcing this digitalization now, like COVID, what are the major trends that you guys are seeing over the next few years where you think the financial services industry is really going to double down on their efforts? I'll start again with Bob. So what are your thoughts in terms of where FSI is going and what the focus is going to be?
Sure. Well, two predominant trends that we're all seeing in the financial services industry are around migration to the cloud and leveraging artificial intelligence, AI. I mean, clearly, what financial institutions are working to do is to extract the value of the data. Both in terms of internal proprietary data and as they merge that with third-party exogenous data. And so the first challenge becomes moving all of that data to the cloud. And it's going to be a multi-hybrid cloud environment. And the legacy systems are going to participate in that multi-hybrid cloud environment. And then on top of that data, what AI tools are going to be used to extract the value of the data. And so to come back to some of the points that were previously made, it's very likely that the majority of these financial institutions are going to continue to run a lot of these legacy systems around core banking, payments, claims, and insurance claims adjudication, policy administration, explanation of benefits. They're going to continue to run these legacy systems for some time. But what they're concerned about is the complexity and cost around exposing the interfaces in the legacy systems. And they want to mask as much of that as they can. And therefore comes the opportunity to leverage open APIs, open data, open interfaces. And in doing this, they're looking to do this in a cost-effective way where these APIs are reasonably priced in terms of the value they provide. They can be created in a timely fashion, and they can perform well, given the high transaction volumes of a lot of these firms. So the challenge becomes one of, in moving to a multi-hybrid cloud environment, leveraging AI to do that in a cost-effective way. And most of the financial institutions, therefore, are looking at how are they creating APIs in digital services. So this is an important shift that's taking place across financial services. And it's an area certainly that OpenLegacy provides interesting and exciting tools and technologies that have proven out to be just that, cost-effective, timely to implement, and performing high performance.
Thanks, Bob. So yeah, you mentioned, in terms of open legacy and how that helps. How about you, Joseph? Where do you see, where do you see open legacy playing there? And what are those trends that you're seeing now in the engagements that we're having in the region as well?
Yeah, I see two observations, at least from my perspective. One is, and I wouldn't call it a trend. I think it's more of a reaction to the pandemic, first of all. In the customers that I've been working with, at least over the last year and a half, I see that a lot of them have actually suddenly found themselves in survival mode, right? Instead of just thriving and rolling out the initiatives that they actually had, they really needed to make sure that they could be nimble so they can actually pivot in the face of COVID-19. And so a lot of them have actually resorted to moving towards a more composable enterprise approach. And I think, a lot of us who are in the audience today are probably in the IT sector. And you would probably agree that if you look at the typical IT architecture of a bank or insurance company, there's the legacy at the bottom, and then there's the top, at the top, the digital layer, and in the middle is basically a big monolith of, the ESB or other software that allows the two layers to communicate. And
Mhm.
that layer is actually quite expensive to maintain, to be very honest, because every time you need to make a change in that particular layer, you need to do a lot of SIT, UAT, regression testing. So it's not very conducive to innovation, so to speak. And so I see a lot of companies that currently we work with going from a more monolithic approach to a more containerized approach, trying to break off some of those business logic from the monolith into things that are more microservice related, as Bob was saying. And as Barry was saying a lot as well, he was using the word agile quite a bit in his presentation. I think ultimately that's what companies are trying to get towards from a reaction to the pandemic, at least from what I see. And then the second thing that I currently have noticed in the marketplace is, and again, I'm going to use an example in Southeast Asia. In fact, we have a reference customer in Indonesia who is in the life insurance space. And one of their biggest problems is in Indonesia, most of you would probably know that they have a fairly young population. The average age is actually 30 in terms of our population in Indonesia. And so you're working with a lot of millennial clientele. And in order to serve these clients well, they actually like to do a lot of things on their smartphone. So getting an insurance quote, buying insurance policies online, and doing self-administration. So in Southeast Asia, especially in Indonesia with this particular life insurance company, their challenge was, how do I expose a lot of the hidden logic in our AS400s in our mainframes directly to the mobile phone, the smart apps on the mobile phone. So they actually needed to create a very slick smartphone app for their users. And they used us. They came to us basically to help open up some of that logic, some of that data from some of the stored procedures to microservices and APIs to basically expose that. And then on the flip side, the agents that they rely on to sell these policies are also fairly young. So they also needed to create an app for their agents to take their iPads into the field and be able to log an order in real time with their clients as well. So, there were two folds basically in terms of this particular life insurance customer in terms of problems that they were seeing. And we were happy to help provide a means for them to do something like
Mhm.
Terrific, thank you. So Barry, how about for yourself? What are those trends that you see driving, or that you see that you think are going to emerge based on this?
Yeah, the drive is actually because of the customer experience, because the customer engagement are handled digitally. So this is the fundamental change. We see banking organization invest a lot in the remote account opening, the eKYC, how to have a verification of identity the remotely. Those are I would say, the starting point. The real challenge is how we do the new business all digitally. and to have the customer really comfortable using it, and also the internal team, the RM or the support team, the service team, comfortably serving the customer with a very high customer satisfaction. This is not easy. So the theme that we are applying is what we call intelligent workflow. So intelligent workflow is very different designed compared to the traditional workflow engine. The traditional workflow engine optimized like a factory. Okay, I want to operate the most effective way that I want to do. And now I think the drive, because of this digital age and also pandemic, we need to customize that process per customer so that we serve them as like a RM, a super RM. I handle the banking internal complexity for you. I will help you get it done fast. And that combined the AI, which Bob talked about, combined the integration, which Joseph talked about. And we have to be able to design that capability with a very effective integration across the organization to achieve that. And I see organizations moving towards that direction, and by investing properly AI technology and basically orchestrate using intelligent workflow, I think we see a clear trend in that for organization kind of a pioneer or inventing the new way of doing business will be in that area.
Cool, thank you. So a couple more questions, I think, and then we can start also answering some of the questions that we've been receiving from our participants. I guess leading from this previous question now, I guess I'd like to ask, what are the kinds of corporate initiatives or enterprise initiatives that we're seeing that address, these trends that you're seeing and that you think are going to be prevalent in the next, 3 to 5 years moving forward? I think it's also really cool that Joseph mentioned earlier that some of the organizations or many organizations in the FSS space are, reacting, especially because, everybody's been caught unawares by COVID, right? And I think it's also a good thing, and tell me what you think, it's also a good thing that, COVID is making us realize as enterprises, a lot of the things that we were considering and wanted to do that were aspirational for us are now becoming a necessity that's driving how we do business. And we need to react faster. We need to deliver faster. Otherwise, again, if somebody else is delivering a service that I can't deliver, then I'm going to lose part of my lunch to that, right? So again, just to reiterate, from your perspective, what are these initiatives or business or corporate enterprise initiatives that you are seeing being driven to adopt technology and modernization of those legacy applications? I'll start with you, Barry.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. For the modernization for the actual business drive, I would say it's definitely a top-down corporate strategic drive for that. The how to turn the actual improvement of customer experience, innovation in product, into the revenue, into better profit, into better market capture. I think that is what the C-level really want to drive, and that create the opportunity for more than just the digital team, but also the whole organization, including the system of record core system team to work towards that innovation target. I think that is the kind of from the business top driver to determine the strategic direction and being able to execute fast end to end in the organization, and that is what we see.
Thanks, Barry. Over to you, Bob. Again, what do you see in terms of, corporate or enterprise initiatives that are driving that adoption of technology and its application?
Sure. So, as the competitive landscape heats up, what all financial institutions are trying to do is just what was shared by Barry, which is improving the client experience. And improving the client experience means just that. It's for the banking customers, it's for the mortgage customers, it's for the insurance customers. As the demographics are changing and people want to do more on their mobile devices, consequently, how is increased functionality and higher quality applications, how are they being presented to the end using customers? And the end using customers don't really care about all of the multi-technology and interdependencies of the applications, the frameworks, the data. All of that is something that they just want to leave to the financial institutions to figure out. So what's happening are all of these financial institutions are looking for ways to improve productivity, to enhance time to market, and to reduce risk in providing this improved client experience. And that's where I think the open APIs, the open banking really has a role here. What it can do is it can eliminate the need to explore all of these complex interfaces that increase cost and take time to navigate through. They can help reduce complexity by moving to and designing business source APIs that can provide these enhanced client experiences. So it's all around application modernization. It's all around the use of AI. It's around doing that to improve the client experience. And what has to be done in the background is reducing cost and complexity around these monolithic applications. And the use of open banking, open APIs can clearly help improve that and deliver a higher client experience in a more economic way.
Thanks, Bob. Joseph, turning over to you, right? Especially maybe from your perspective here in APJ, right, where we do see a lot of these financial institutions, specifically insurance, maybe, and banking, where these core legacy systems are still very much in play. Are you seeing, what are you seeing in terms of those initiatives being driven at the enterprise level?
Yeah, so I think in summary, all corporations want to increase revenue and profitability. That's really the ultimate goal, right? And to drive shareholder value. And in order for them to do that, assuming that they're keeping their legacy systems, which is what we find quite a bit here in Asia Pacific, I have two other examples that I'd like to quote. I'm in the field a lot, so I like to share customer stories. One of the example is with a current prospect that we're working in the insurance side of things as well. And they are pan Southeast Asia at this point. And what their problem is, they're trying to go into a new market like Thailand, like Vietnam. And as you probably know, in those markets, they rely quite a bit on brokers. So there are brokers that are local in those markets that can actually help carry and sell those policies for this particular insurance company. Unfortunately, the integration between this insurance company's system and the broker system is not top notch. And in order for them to build those APIs for the integration manually, they're probably looking at least 6 months for each broker. And somebody over there did the math and basically told their management team that for every month of delay in terms of rolling out the integration, they're looking at least 6 digits US dollars of lost revenue. And that's why they came to us and said, OpenLegacy, please help us create that API factory where we can automatically generate the APIs that are necessary for them so they can actually go live in 2 months instead of 6 months. And this is talking about per broker in each country. So that's why they're currently working with us on a pilot to see, how good we can be in order to, help serve their needs. Okay, so staying one step ahead of the competition is definitely very important. And ultimately, they want to be able to have these initiatives that can increase revenue and profitability. Now, the other quick example I'll give is in Japan, we're working with a bank, and they are already a customer that is live. There's quite a bit of, P2P transactions, right? Especially P2P payment systems that have been rolled out over the last few years. In Hong Kong, you have the likes of PayMe, Alipay, and so forth. In Japan, they have something similar as well. And for this particular bank, what they needed to do is to connect their IBM CICS system directly to the P2P mobile app that has actually been rolled out into the marketplace. And so they came to us to create those APIs that will allow them to provide instant connection between their legacy system and the mobile apps for P2P payment.
Cool. Thank you very much. Um, at this point, I guess I'd like to, quote somebody, a wiser man than me, as they say, who said that, in the space that we are in right now, it's no longer about the big eating the small, but it's about the fast eating the slow, right? And as all of you have mentioned, it's the agility and the speed and the flexibility to deliver that from our core systems forward toward the way that we engage internally or externally, right? In our systems of engagement, that makes a difference in that competitive landscape. um, I know we're approaching around 10 minutes time. I think we have enough time maybe to answer one question from the audience. And what we're seeing here is, one of the questions was, what are the biggest hurdles that you've seen in the field? For example, would it be cost? Would it be resource? Like Bob mentioned earlier, is it, operational risk, in the sense that I have to worry about turnover, not just the technology, but the turnover, bringing in, the new staff and training them. Like Barry mentioned, is it about open technology, right? Does that make a major difference? And the adoption of that technology. So I guess I'll start, with Joseph. What are you seeing in terms of, what you mentioned in the examples or the stories that you've told? What are the biggest hurdles that customers come to you with?
Yeah, I mean, I see quite a few potential hurdles, but cost is definitely one that we often see in terms of having the right budget. But having the right budget actually stems from the fact that there needs to be a paradigm shift. So there needs to be a mindset shift when you're talking about touching your legacy system, right? Whether for the banks, it's your mainframe, or for insurance companies, the AS400s and so forth. And in order for CIOs and senior IT leaders to really get plugged into the fact that they need to do something about their legacy system, there needs to be a bit of a comfort level set with the mindset change. Because when we run into these sales situations, so to speak, for instance, a lot of times we don't get no's because they don't have the budget, or they don't have the resources. It's no because I don't know what I really want to do yet. And that's why, as Open Legacy, we need to put on our consultative hat from time to time and go in and design or co-design a strategy with them in terms of what should be the roadmap for their legacy systems for the next 3, 5, or 10 years. So I see the paradigm shift or the mindset shift being the biggest hurdle in terms of us helping these companies modernize.
Cool. Yeah, that's a really, really great point, right? Where we talk about, I think everybody in the webinar today, right? We're all professionals. We're all familiar with the fact that the world is changing, and we do need to change, and we need to stay relevant and adopt and make the changes to adapt to the change in our environment, right? So from the consultancy side, right, Barry, what do you see as the biggest hurdle? Again, we know that change needs to happen, but what's the hurdle stopping people from really, doubling down on that change?
Yeah, thank you. One of the major challenges, the limitation or the limited legacy application skills resources. Yeah, you will be a lot of people thinking about mainframe. Well, yeah, it's probably going away, but no, indeed there's a shortage of mainframe developers. Yeah, and we use our India operation and China operation for that. Just and for a lot of organizations to just maintaining the core system is challenging. So how would that team be able to handle more workload, creating the API? It is challenging. So I like what Joseph mentioned, API Factory, how we can help them acquire new skills, not becoming another burden to the legacy team. It will be trying to make life easier for them. And I think that is one major challenge that we're trying to overcome that. And another part would be the executive sponsorship, to encapsulate the core system with the OpenAPI. That is the challenge is the return of that investment might not come very fast. You need to find a quick win project, but you probably have some initial investment to have the critical mass of API going, and then you start benefit. Oh, now I see the agility. I see the team really working as one team. I have digital application lifecycle much faster. But there is a very important initial investment and also executive sponsorship to really drive the organization towards the front end and back end, towards a common objective doing that. And that is something that we really want to see a more executive focus on this fundamental agile modernization investment, and I'm confident that will be very rewarding as a core competency of the organization for the future.
Thanks, Barry. So we've heard about, one being the term in terms of cost, and specifically not just the cost of doing business, but the cost of doing nothing. We've heard from Barry, who talks about, the hurdles of having our executive sponsorship that drives down that change, which is very important to the organization. And we've also heard that, legacy, or let's say, for example, mainframe isn't going away. Most of us in this chat or in this webinar have been hearing that over the last maybe decade, and it hasn't happened yet. So, that core or that legacy system is here to stay, and it's now a question of how do we adopt it to where the business wants to go. Anything to add, Bob, in terms of, that kind of the hurdles that you also see around this sort of transformation?
Sure. Well, it's around the business case analysis. I mean, there have been a lot of attempts at modernizing some of these legacy systems, and some of the outcomes haven't really been acceptable. And so consequently, when you start to peel that away, what you find out is that senior management often has issues around trust and confidence in the projections that their teams are providing as to what will the cost and what will the time frame be around these modernization efforts. And part of the reason for that is a lot of work that needs to be done to go back in and analyze the code, taking a look at the technical debt and the blockers to modernization. And so one of the things that I'm seeing are that a lot of these financial firms are taking the time to go in and really understand and map out these legacy systems, and to do a better job, therefore, identifying what are the inhibitors to building this new functionality that all of these financial institutions want to provide. And it's coming back with fact-based proposals around this is the technical debt, these are the blockers, here's how much it would cost, here's how long it would take, and here are examples of firms that have successfully done this. I would challenge financial institutions to take a look at some of the changes that are being made to the code, and how much are those changes costing, and how long are they taking relative to their initial projections. And if these financial institutions aren't enabled to provide that new functionality, at the cost that they'd like to, in the timeframes that they want to, and with the performance levels that they need, then they need to take a look at other approaches. And one of those approaches, would be around microservices. And I think OpenLegacy has some technology that there really should be considered as a way to increase the speed and agility in delivering that new functionality.
Thanks a lot, Bob. Look, guys, we're coming up to time. So I'd like to thank the panel for your participation, and of course, everybody that's in the webinar. So some quick announcements, I guess, before we go. Let me just put up my screen so that you can see these details. And I think my screen is shared now. So again, I'd like to thank everybody on behalf of our panelists, on behalf of IBM, on behalf of OpenLegacy. Thank you very much for attending. The recording of this webinar will be sent out to you within the next week. We will also include the questions that you have sent in, those that weren't addressed or answered during the chat and the open question and answer. And again, if you'd like to reach us in the meantime or have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to us at info@openlegacy.com. And once again, thank you very much and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.